Hello and welcome everyone to our Housing Justice Forum. We are joined today by our City Council members, LaTrisha Vetaw and Pearll Warren, representing wards 4 and 5. I just want to remind folks that as we go through our session today, you'll see reminders, sort of housekeeping protocols in the chat. Um, and yeah, we're just excited to get going. I do want to just name that our city council members joining us today are giving us a lot of grace by being here. They just got out of a very long hearing. I'm sure some of you in the room were able to catch that hearing. And so you know that they've been doing a lot of talking and processing today. So we just, we're starting a little bit later than we planned, but we wanted to give them some time to kind of like enter the space and be here with us today. For those of you who are less familiar with our work, my name is Asale Soul. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the executive director of Housing in Action. We are a 30-plus year affordable housing organization that focuses on both affordable rental housing as well as housing development for affordable sale. Our vision at Housing in Action is housing justice for all. Our mission is to lead the fight for housing justice so that all people have a safe, stable, and dignified place to live. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Vleem to lead our land and labor acknowledgement.
Thank you, Sally Sol. Let's take a moment for the land and labor acknowledgement that Housing in Action has put together. And it says this: we acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that European colonizers stole from the Dakota peoples indigenous to Minnesota. In order for this theft to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. We also acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that was cultivated and developed by bodies that European colonizers stole from West African countries through the transatlantic slave trade. In order for these thefts to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. We acknowledge what was taken from our collective human ancestors, and as we do so, we commit to work and fight for the liberation of the descendants of those enslaved through American chattel slavery and the sovereignty of all Native American peoples.
Thank you for that, Paul. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And I just want to start off by thanking everyone who took the time to submit questions for our discussion today. As usual, we've done everything we can to gather those questions and concerns that people shared with us and pass them forward to our city council members. So they know, even if we don't get to your question today, they certainly know what's on your mind. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and dive in. So I'm going to just start us off with some brief introductions. We'll start with LaTrisha Vetaw. If you all could just share your ward, the ward that you represent, your favorite spot in your ward, and what your preferred pronouns are.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
We can, no
Okay.
worries. Yep.
I don't know what's happening. We got kicked out or something.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
LaTrisha, are you able to kick us off with just letting folks know what ward you represent and your favorite place in that ward?
Oh, I like this question, Asali. So it's the word you live in also.
It is. It
So
is.
I'm LaTrisha Beach. I'm the council member serving Ward 4 here in Minneapolis, North Side. And right now, let me think, my favorite place in the ward right now is Tap In. Tap In on
Mm.
Lowry is kind of, I don't know. It's like I go through these phases of like when I introduce people to the ward, I like to take them to different places. And that's kind of been my meeting place for some time now to, for people to come and see like the things that we have to offer in the city. And that's been the most frequent place I've been meeting with folks at.
That's awesome. And shout out to Tap In. It's a great spot. If you haven't been there, please check it out. Pearl, please share with us your ward and your favorite location in that ward.
Hello, beautiful people. My name is Pearll Warren, council member for Ward 5. And my favorite place in my ward is honestly like the farmer's market, because I'm always picking up something to cook. I love to prepare meals and stuff like that. I got a juicy family. I like to host them and do stuff like that. So I'm always going to go get some vegetables or some corn on the cob or something, a cinnamon roll, because I love bread. I'm always, and I feel like I can do it all, like the guilt and the guilt-free in a one-stop shop at the farmer's market. Yeah, that's kind of.
That was
I also
awesome.
have a newfound love too for the glass house in the ward as well. Let me say that, because yeah, that place is fun.
Awesome. Okay, y'all, we got 3 recommendations for you to visit if you haven't been there yet. Hit up Tap In, Glass House, and frankly, your local farmers market. And if you live close to North, definitely come over to our side. Thank you both for that. I think it's really nice for folks to just kind of get to know your personalities a little bit, which I think is often rare in the work that you do. So we really appreciate that. All right, so I'm gonna bring up the long conversation you all had today. And just the response, just how things are going in response to Operation Metro Surge. So as you all know, and we're in deep conversation about, thousands of households are behind on both rent and mortgage by at least 2 to 3 months. People have not felt safe to go to work. And as a result of that, folks have lost either work hours, or some folks have lost their jobs entirely. And so folks have just lost income and are scrambling to figure out how to stabilize themselves. Folks have been detained, abducted, deported. Again, I know you both know this well, and are certainly talking to your constituents about this. How are you using your power and your position to keep our neighbors in Ward 4 and 5 safe and housed? Please be specific. And if this is not a priority for you, please tell us why. And we're going to start this first question with Pearll.
Thank you for that. This is a very delicate dance, and I think you heard us talking about that and heard me say it on the dais today. In North Minneapolis, we do have a lot of community members who are homeowners that are immigrants, in 5 and in 4 too as well. And LaTrisha pointed that out. And I think just really educating people on, even mortgage deferment, like how to defer mortgage payments, what that means if you're 60 days behind and you're not able to make those mortgage payments, depending upon the financial product that they have, whether it's FHA or a conventional product. I know that that is very important, and that they know what resources exist in their immediacy. But then also what I've been doing is giving individuals just the language of how to really set up those type of payment arrangements with their landlords. Like, what does that look like? If I'm not able to pay my rent, how can I set up something with them to say, hey, I'm going to pay an extra $100 or an extra $200 a month until, I'm able to pay this situation down, because we know yes, there are county programs, and I stated this earlier today. But a lot of our immigrant community members and neighbors and things like that are afraid of going to put their information into these county systems or into these different programs because, again, it's a trust issue, right? And so, knowing that that's an issue, and the fact that if my husband was kidnapped and he was the primary breadwinner, I stated this on the dais today, there's no guarantee that I myself, based on my skill set, have the ability to make the amount of money that maybe he was making. So then sustainability and affordability for that housing becomes an issue and a barrier. And going to a county program becomes challenging because they're going to ask me, and this is with any county or nonprofit program, what is my plan for sustainability, right? And what does that mean and affordability for myself and my family? Can we truly afford this place? And if I can't, I need to look at something like a mutual termination agreement with my landlord to say, hey, I can't afford this. This is what my family situation has changed. My spouse or my partner was the primary breadwinner for this. I have found a place that will accept me, or I'm going to go stay with family and friends in a place that's more affordable and where I can be safer together with somebody else. What I need you to do is honor that with me and not create a barrier for me in the future. Like, don't put on my record that I owe you X amount of dollars of rent. Give me an opportunity to pay that off, but allow me to break this leasing agreement so that I am able to sustain myself and maybe go stay with family or friends or a relative or something until something's more affordable. So those are some of the conversations that I've been having with individuals so that they're educated on some of the housing laws, how to be that advocate for themselves and vocalize themselves in these transitional moments.
Yes, thank you for that, Councilmember Pearll Warren. We really appreciate that you are taking the time to actually walk people through processes. And I know that that's one of the ways that you really like to work in this role. And so really appreciate that. And with that, we're going to make sure, LaTrisha, you have enough time to answer the question as well. So we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I would say, the question was around how am I using my power and influence sort of to get folks what they need. I'll start out by saying that this is absolutely a priority for me. I found out one of the things you learn when you're door knocking is who lives in your neighborhood. And I knew years ago that we had a large Hmong population and Latino population in Ward 4 in particular. So knowing that, last year, actually, I teamed up with a couple of local folks after Trump was reelected to start getting people in the neighborhood DOPA forms filled out. I had an issue at Lucy Laney. A teacher alerted me of a situation and I was able to help then. So we started to use my ward office and other resources we had to get these DOPA forms filled out so children weren't left behind if their parents were detained or what, at that time, we didn't really know what was happening, but we knew that we couldn't have children without somewhere to go. And especially without family members knowing like how to get the children. So we started doing that work last year. And then when, this year, when things sort of like just got extremely chaotic, right away, I started to fundraise. I would say the first thing I did was I sat down with the community and said, what do you need from me? How can I best support you as a council member? And that's Latino leaders from churches, business owners that have restaurants, that have cleaning services, the grocery store, nonprofits in our community. And that's all of North Minneapolis. That's not Ward 4. And saying, how can I best support you as a council member? My office reached out to all the schools in Ward 4 and asked the principals, how can I help? How do we support families? And so then we worked to collaborate all these services and make sure we were getting what Northside residents needed. So I worked with Daniel Hernandez up at Colonial Market. We did a voucher program. So instead of taking food, the food that was being donated over to people, we were including meat and fresh fruits and vegetables because that's what people said they wanted. We had a huge request for baby formula and diapers and adult diapers and women's feminine hygiene products. So we would do these events where we would ask people to bring things in. Now, where I've been a little different at, and I think the group that I've been working with is we haven't been very vocal. And that was because that's what they asked for. They asked for it to be, more silent and for us to be coordinated in a different way. So I follow what the people I've been working with have asked me to do. I think now that we know that a lot of the agents are out of here, we're talking about it a little bit more publicly. But my power and influence has always been directed at asking the people who are most affected. I'm going to end with this. We have a large Hmong population in North Minneapolis. And when I first reached out to them, they were like, people aren't talking about us. We need help too. The focus has really been on Latino and East African families, and we're here and we're being picked up and our families are being affected. So one way I had to do that was reach out to people I know directly. We have a local market in Ward 4, on Lowry. And so it's been those kind of things, just building up on the relationships I have and certainly creating new relationships and using the influence I have to raise money and to get people rides to work. I've even loaned my car to people to get people to work. I mean, it really is about using the resources you have, but asking people what they need.
Yeah, really appreciate both of those responses, sharing with folks exactly the specifics of how you're staying connected to your constituents through all of this. There's a lot of, to your point, Councilmember Vetaw, there's a lot of noise and showiness, and so we don't always see the background work. So really appreciate hearing that from both of you.
The noise is showing scary sometimes, Asali Soul, for people. You know what I mean? It's not always as simple as I deliver food, I'm going to show. Sometimes that's even scarier for people when everybody knows you're delivering food to them.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And thank you for just calling that out. So I do want to remind you both that we're going to try our best to stay to 3 minutes. You all have really great things to say, so I'm going to push myself to cut you off if you go longer because I'm just really love listening. But just that quick reminder. Our next question is around the actual estimated loss of income. So the city of Minneapolis estimates that household income lost income since December of 2025 has created an additional need of $15.7 million in monthly rental assistance. How are you using your power again and position to make sure that our neighbors have access to rental assistance? And we do know some of the work that you all have already done as a council, but love to hear specifically how each of you is continuing to work on this. And we'll start this question with you, Councilmember Vetaw.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is talking to our federal colleagues and saying, what can you all do at the federal level? Because that's where this destruction came from. We need money. The upside of the pandemic was the Fed sent money down to help us get out of that. And we need that again. We need some recovery from the federal level. So I've been in conversations always throughout this with Senator Amy Klobuchar and her office about the possibilities at the federal level. I also think at the state level, we really got to dig in that state couch and figure out how we can help, because we're not guaranteed that the feds are going to come through for us. And housing is the number one issue here. We do not want people to lose their housing. And then that is programming where people have access. It can't be these programs where I think we're going to have to develop and create some new programs to fit what we have going on right now. You two know more than I do. Your careers have been in housing for decades. And so these programs where you can only apply once a year, these programs where you have to give massive amounts of information and where you don't qualify if you don't make money and you've been out of work. That's no longer the way we can do this. We have to get creative, and we need the state to do that. This is not Minneapolis alone. This is our entire state that's affected by housing, right? So we can't just say we're going to do this in Minneapolis. There's certainly things that Minneapolis may do that people model after the fact, but like this is an emergency and we need to the state to treat it as such and to develop programming that fits an emergency.
That's right. Thank you for that. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you for that. I'm echoing a lot of what Councilmember Vetaw said, and I mean this goes back to numerous of conversations that I've had with constituents who've reached out to me, where I'm saying there's only so much that the city itself can do, right? But we got to put pressure on the county. We have to put pressure on the state. We have to put pressure on our federal government. Again, the county can soften some of their guys and their guidelines around what it means to apply for emergency assistance, what it means in order to keep a family stabilized or to have some additional rent helps put into place. But the county has to hear from the constituents too. You know, me saying it sounds good, but I need my community members to show up there at the county office. I'll go there with you and supporting that to say, hey, can we change some things up in order to ensure that we're able to support our residents in a different fashion for a short amount of time. It's not a forever thing. It's just a little bit of time. But I mean, we've given them $1 million in aid that came from the city itself, but the county does have the funding. They have the capacity, and you know, there's a lot of different things that are at play here, especially with us, even just within the Operation Metro Surge. There still were individuals who were very essential workers, where you're talking about income loss, that were employed with DHS and were providing essential work for our community members who are disabled or unable to care for themselves, who weren't even being paid, but they were still showing up every day to a job, and they had paychecks on hold that they hadn't received since November. And then they were told by the county, well, we can't give you any assistance because you have a job, you have a paycheck, you just haven't received a paycheck. So now you're on the waiting list to see if you're going to get a paycheck. Because if you don't get a paycheck, then maybe we'll pay you. But I'm getting ready to get put out on the streets. Like, so I'm working, I have income coming, but you won't help me in my immediate situation so that I can pay you back later or something. I mean, I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I'm not getting paid from an employer that I'm showing up for every day, taking care of a lot of our most vulnerable community members because of the way that they're moving things through this insurgent and, you know, all of this, you know, alleged fraud and whatever else the case is, that they're holding people's actual finances from them working. And that's challenging for a lot of our community members. So I think everybody, I know there's been a lot of things that are said about our Hispanic or our East African community members, but everybody across the board is feeling it. Like we're all feeling it. Everybody's feeling this, the stress, the mental anguish, the frustration. I can't do enough. You know what I mean? There's so many hours in a day. I wish I could do more. Like that's a lot on everybody. And so it's challenging, but I really believe that, you know, and I'm hopeful that our legislation will definitely move some federal funds towards, you know, the repair, because this is going to take a great deal of repair, and it's going to have to come down from the federal side of things, because at the city level, we only have so much funding, right? You know, there's only so much that we can, you know, do in actuality. And so we're definitely going to need that federal and state funding in order to repair and restore as much as we can our communities here and keep ourselves afloat.
Yeah, and yes, and you have led us right perfectly into the next question. But I do just want to say that, you know, the government ebbs and flows with the times. But one thing that Minneapolis has shown and that you all have shown in your answers to earlier questions is that we also really work hard to take care of each other, regardless of those ebbs and flows at the federal and state level. So the city of Minneapolis alone estimates 20% of the population needs emergency relief due to the economic disruption of Operation Metro Surge. And like I said, Councilmember Warren, your comments lead perfectly into this next question. Are you planning to propose or support any other aid outside of rental assistance? And we've talked about the burden on homeowners, which does not get enough recognition. Both of you spoke to the reality of just the other basic needs that folks have right now that they're struggling to have met. So Councilmember Warren, will start with you this time. Anything that you are planning on proposing for those greater needs?
I know that we are providing a lot of help around legal support and legal assistance, and things of that nature. There are definitely more aids that are needed, post-purchase supports, grants that definitely can come into play for individuals who are first-time home buyers. I mean, I'm very new to this role, so I haven't jumped into writing ordinances and resolutions. I'm 2 months in. Congratulations to me. And here it is. We had a full on, federal insurgent happening day 3 on the job. So I was still trying to find my office and the bathrooms when all of this stuff happened. Okay. So I greatly appreciate the patience that the community has given me, but I do understand the level of urgency that we have wrapped around this body of work. And I want you to know that I take it very seriously. So I am looking at ways that we can support individuals. I came from Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. A lot of our families there were at 60 to 80% income levels that were purchasing homes. A lot of them were immigrant families, and so I'm looking for ways like we did with our post-purchase program there that we can instrument things that would definitely build supports around individuals who have just purchased their homes, do not have the funding in reserve for these type of emergencies so that they don't default in their loans and still need those type of supports. And, there's a lot of different things like that I'm very much interested in doing to ensure that we're able to keep our family stabilized amongst all of these different things. But it is some research that needs to be done on what those limitations look like and the things that I definitely can do. But I have been in support and in education with my colleagues as much as possible. And I know people get a little bit frustrated with me because they're like, oh, Pearll doesn't seem like she's for this. I really want to educate folks. And then that way, if I'm saying it and someone can say, hey, yeah, that's a barrier. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Here's what we can do to work around. Give me the workaround because I don't understand exactly what the workaround and the limitations. I just got here, right? So I don't know what those workarounds look like, but I can articulate the way that that the programs are completely lined up now, and magnify what those things look like so that if there is a workaround, we can work together to work around it in order to ensure, success and longevity with our individual residents and, sustainability for our communities and healthy programs in the future. So.
Yeah, we really appreciate that response as well. And we're all it's like literally riding a bike while you build it right now, because we've never seen this before. So we definitely hear you and appreciate that you're grinding and learning as quickly as you can. Councilmember Vetaw.
I think you said that the numbers that the city put out was that 20% of families were going to be affected by this. And can you finish the rest of that for me?
Yeah, I can definitely restate that. So the city of Minneapolis estimates that 20% of the population, so 20% of Minneapolis just Minneapolis alone needs emergency relief due to the ways that Operation Metro Surge has created economic disruption.
Okay.
So the question is there anything that you're planning to propose or even just support in addition to a rental assistance to help people stabilize at this time?
So I am certainly open to future support, but I also think that the county's budget for housing is much larger than ours. We've sent $1 million over there. I don't think that is even close to enough to what we're going to need to get ourselves out of this. But I would like to see us having ongoing conversations with the county about how much money they actually have and what's available. They're a social service agency who has the ability to stand up programs. And even if that's through partnership, I worked at North Point for 17 years and we would have lots of county programs around housing and all of these things. It would come through North Point, but it got out to community. So I'm certainly open to the city putting more in. I'd like to make a decision, though, the next time on how much we actually need and what the city has. I struggled with the first $1 million and the $7 million for economic development because I really didn't know the effect. Like, how are we going to use this? How is this going to be deployed? Who's going to get it? And how is this going to affect exactly what situation we're in here? So I would like us to collect some solid data on what this 20% means, right? Like, is this 20%? What is the dollar amount of this 20%? And how do we partner collectively to make sure we help people, not put the onus on one person? And I really believe there are ways in which all of us can work together. This should not be a siloed organization. This literally has to be, the housing experts coming to us and saying, this is what we need help with and how. This is how people are falling behind. Private landlords, government, private dollars. I mean, right now we've made our way out of the month of February through private dollars, but I don't know if that is going to be sustained through how long this is going to be. And I don't know, we need plans literally like day by day. It's not like something we can plan ahead for. We don't know. We don't have a timeline. So I really do think that it's going to take all of us, not talking about working together, but actually working together. And all of us literally digging in our couches and saying, this is what I have as a government agency. And yes, I can move something from over here, but I think what matters to me the most is knowing, like, if I'm saying, let's take money from this pot at the city and move it to this, that is actually going towards what we need to happen for families to be sustained, and not like a kind of just like taking a chance on the money getting to the people who really need it. Because one of the things that we talked about early on with our emergency response team was that, it's not always rent and mortgage. People need these other essential items like energy assistance and assistance. And last year, I brought a budget amendment forward that added some money to assist with energy assistance. And I can't wait for them to get that money out there for people to use it. But there's so many other expenses that comes with what we're seeing here. I really hope that, we come together like neighbors have come together in this magical way as government agencies and like really do something big for our people.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Councilmember Vetaw. And just a reminder to all of us that we all have to come together. Government agencies have to come together. We have to continue to partner across sectors to really support each other. And the communities like us, we the people, have really demonstrated capacity for that. And as you called out, Councilmember Vetaw, I live in your ward, so I know firsthand that North Minneapolis has been showing up for each other through this time. And so I just really appreciate that reminder that this is what it takes, and it takes more of that. It takes persisting in that. So I'm going to turn to, our conversation earlier. I'm sorry, not with me, the conversation you all had earlier, where you both voted no on the pause for evictions, the Pause Eviction Save Lives ordinance that would temporarily extend the required notice for evictions from 30 days to 60 days. Would either of you care to explain your vote further, again, recognizing you just came from that conversation?
Most certainly. And so, I spoke on the dais, and I'll speak to anyone who wants to talk to me about this. We had, I think, 13 organizations who do nonprofit housing reach out to us. Typically, these nonprofit organizations are the folks that I lean on as experts in housing. And so nothing will be different for me now with the crisis that we're in. What I've heard from these folks is those early interventions matter with families. And if we create an opportunity for the interventions to be drawn out for more days, then we set families up to fail more than we do to help them. That if they don't know, like in 15 days, that somebody might be struggling with a dollar amount. And I think where the conversation kind of gets a little murky for me at is people talk in terms of private landlords all the time, but a lot of the housing we have are these nonprofits, are like public housing, where it's not this huge dollar amount that people are getting behind on, but these evictions just kind of, they happen. Right? Like they just automatically happen because people want to warn you now that like you're behind a month, and they don't want you to keep getting behind, because that's when families, that's when it's harder to come back, when you're not told you owe a certain dollar amount soon enough. And then, like we have people who live paycheck to paycheck. We have people who don't live they don't have enough money to make it to the next paycheck. Right. Mm-hmm. And so like, I respect all the organizations who reached out to me and said, Councilmember, we are not helping. We are actually harming families. We want to work with you on ways in which we can help families. And that's what I want to do. That is what my commitment is to. That is why I did not vote for the Save Lives, I can't remember the name, but Save Lives Pause Evictions, I think. So that is why I didn't work with that. And again, I welcome anyone who wants to sit down and talk to me about this. There was engagement from organizers and folks around this. But again, the housing experts that I trust, that I've leaned on throughout my career, I believe when they tell me that an unintended consequence of this could be evictions happening at high numbers at a later date. And so I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't even want to take the risk of that when I know we've just suffered from so much trauma right now. I don't want that to be a thing. I want to help people in real time. I know we can do it. I believe we can do it. Sometimes it feels good to believe in something. But I want to make sure people's rent and mortgage and expenses get paid in real time. And then, like, if there are policy things that we need to change for that, or programs we need to stand up, I think we should. But I don't think that was what is needed right now. And can I also just say, Asali, so I've never seen a person put something in the chat so quick in my life. I've never seen this in my life. You need to come over here and help me when I'm doing, everything, I've seen everything just pop up in there as soon as we say it. I love it.
That is hilarious. Shout out to the Housing and Action Resources and Relationships team. They are working in the background to be that quick and efficient, and they are awesome. So thank you all for that.
That game is on point. Okay.
Yes. Councilmember Warren, would you like to share?
I'm just going to share that in my history of doing work and working in housing and housing justice really since 2016, what I don't want to see happen with our most vulnerable community members at this point in time is them to have additional barriers placed on them when it comes to being able to have the opportunity to attain new housing that they can afford. We have a lot of individuals who, again, have not been able to go to work, are in fear of going to work. I want to lift up and big up all of our community members who have been doing a lot of the work, boots on the ground, raising money, helping folks to get their phone bill paid, their rent paid, utilities, whatever the case is. But when it comes to sustainability, and I've seen a lot of this, I worked closely with the Tenant Resource Center and POLAD Foundation on a simple form to get folks $5,000 one-time grants to help alleviate housing barriers that were put on them during the course of the pandemic in the first eviction moratorium that we had. And so I know what these barriers can look like. I know how it can harm individuals when they're trying to move forward and they've gotten themselves in a better position, because again, these county programs or nonprofit programs will help with new business, but they don't help with old business. So when you have that old business sitting out there on your record or in your background, it's difficult to pay that off and still keep current with what you got going on. And if a housing opportunity does come available for someone who, may have gotten their paperwork in order and you are eligible for Section 8, or you are actually eligible for Section 42 or GRH or something like that. And if you have this large deficit of debt on you hanging around in the background, it's going to prevent an opportunity for you to move forward. And that is my worry, that holding that eviction, postponing that eviction time will just create more of a debt for individuals. I don't want to see our community members end up in those situations, not when I've spent a career in housing building winners. You know what I mean? I want to continue to see people win with this. And I believe that there are a lot more ways that we could be creative in helping ensure that our community members get what they need met without having these type of deficits thrown at them. And, it's just going to take a lot of creativity, but I'm applauding everyone who is putting their best foot forward in all of these efforts, because it takes collective efficacy. This is that collective efficacy and cooperative economics that I talk about all the time to help build this sustainability in our community.
That's right. Appreciate both of those responses. And just to remind folks, like what I'm hearing from both of you and what I heard from you earlier today is you're really looking for solutions that not only address the issues that have come out today, but sustain us into the future. And that does take us being thoughtful and creative. To your point, Councilmember Warren, I think a lot of folks don't recognize that, like you pointed out, Councilmember Vetaw, that when you enter that system, aid actually comes your way when you enter that eviction process. And so I think a lot of folks are uneducated on how this works, and the debt does not disappear. No one wants to see more folks out on the street, but we have to recognize that more resources need to come in, and a moratorium or a pause rather, without that financial support does create a greater deficit. It'll hit as soon as that pause is over. And I think just naming that outright, it didn't get named in the session earlier, but naming it outright, you delay the eviction. That's all it's doing. If someone is not coming with the rent, the eviction is simply delayed and the bill is larger for them to pay back. So we have to keep fighting for that financial support. That is the key. It's financial support.
I so appreciate you saying that, because it didn't come out in the way that you just said it. You and I had a conversation about it, and you said that directly to me. But I do think the organizations who showed up today to speak around nonprofit housing, that is exactly what they were trying to say. The bill does not go away. The need is still there. This just prolongs something way more problematic than what it could be. What we have to do is help people right now. I appreciate you saying that so much, Asali Soul, because that is critical. And that is the hard thing to say to people when they, like the three of us, want something to happen right now for people. We all want that. But this is not everything. And then I want to say too, like, every case is not the same with folks. Every ward is not the same. Everything is not the same. Like, sure, we're pulling together resources, but you and I also talked about this on Friday, how the North Side was left behind the resources in the beginning, and we all had to come together. The three of us in our communities had to come together to make sure that we got people what they needed, because they weren't finding the resources in the
That's
community.
right.
They were putting themselves at more risk by getting in their cars or taking the bus or doing whatever, trying to get to South Minneapolis to get the resources, right? And so, like, we also have to remember that this isn't all the same. Every single individual household needs individual care and individual support. They're not all the same here. Everything is, I mean, like, these are very different communities and very different needs.
That's right. That's right. And I just want to just close this section with this final piece that, we have to remember that we are all on the same side, and a corporate landlord isn't the same as an affordable housing landlord, isn't the same as a private landlord. I just really appreciate how much you shouted that out during your testimony, Councilmember Vetaw, about trusting the experts. We have seen this happen live. We have fought. 2020 was not that long ago. And a lot of housing organizations started to do work that was outside of our purview because we were just trying to support our residents as much as we could. And we're learning from that. And that's what we're supposed to do. And we're all supposed to work together. The government created this issue, this problem, this crisis, and it takes all of us to get through it. I just felt like there's often a lot of us versus them in these discussions, and it doesn't get at the nuance and the fact that people have been fighting for equitable and just housing for generations, and this problem extends far beyond the occupation. And so this panel is not focused on me, but I appreciate you guys giving me that time to just say that piece. Clearly, it was on my heart. The last question we're going to close with this is, outside of the federal occupation, what are you doing this year to increase neighbors' access to affordable housing options? Please be specific and share any policies, plans, or initiatives that you all maybe were working on, I guess in your case, Councilmember Vetaw, working on before this all started.
Thank you. And so, like, I want to say this to you because Friday you inspired me. I was having a tough day. We had coffee and a great treat for breakfast, and just your ideas and how we were just so like-minded on what we want to see happen over North. Oh my goodness, you just don't know how much that inspired me. I was just talking because I have so many ideas. And I think the biggest ideas are we have the most access to build. We have the most empty lots in the entire city in North Minneapolis, especially in Ward 4. We have the opportunities to build some great projects around housing, affordable, deeply affordable, projects that we've never had a chance, projects on the river. We got these, we got Laurie and Penn. We have 34th and Penn. I loved our discussion about building up nodes in North Minneapolis versus these kind of one-off projects scattered around, and really taking places like 34th and Penn and revamping that, and 44th and Penn and building that up, and 42nd and Fremont, like all these places. There's so much opportunity in North Minneapolis. And I want to work with partners like you, Housing in Action, like all those 13 groups that showed up and said, hey, we need support in this way. There's so much opportunity. There's been so many policy changes that could allow for some of the things we've talked about happening on the North Side. And so that's a goal. I want to see some senior housing. You inspire me around veterans housing. You totally schooled me on how we can get that done on a project on 35th and Penn. And anybody who will listen to Sally, so I've been telling them, let's make it veterans housing.
I love that.
Our conversation. So that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on nodes and opportunity that is right before our eyes that I know we can develop in the next few years and really have some exciting projects in North Minneapolis, in Ward 4 in particular.
That's awesome. Really appreciate that very inspired kind of close to our session. Councilmember Warren.
Safe, suitable, and sustainable housing is my love language. So the things that I've been currently working on heavily around constituent and constituent services here in the Fifth Ward is addressing a lot of the problem properties that we foresee. You know, in North Minneapolis, we don't have tent camps, but we do have a lot of problem properties with deplorable living conditions. And I want to ensure that our families, whether they're sheltering in place or they are out every day going to work, taking care of, you know, their family in a different fashion, that they're safe in their home. And that is huge to me. Doing these homeowner inspections, inspecting our you know, apartment complexes and things like that, and working with our problem property division to really crack down on those properties, increasing homeownership opportunities for individuals in Ward 5 and across the city who want to move into North Minneapolis, right? Because North Minneapolis is definitely the place to be. So we want to attract new families. We want to attract, you know, new businesses and business owners, and really build up our great mosaic gateway that we have in connection with downtown Minneapolis. Ward 4 and Ward 5, 4's got all of the big amphitheater that's getting ready to come. And there's so many beautiful things that are building up and that are going to be happening in North Minneapolis that you're definitely going to want to move in and be a part of it. So we want to create those access and opportunities to individuals and open it up to folks around the Twin Cities, because it's a beautiful place. I love it. I love my home in North Minneapolis. I want to see more homeowners. I always tell this funny story. I had a neighbor who wasn't like my most favorite person in the world. And I was like, gosh, I really got to do something about this neighbor, because this neighbor was kind of getting on my nerves. Guess what I did? I helped them buy a house, you know, because you create those opportunities for people to move forward in their life, and you want to see them win in that process, right? So creating those opportunities so that people can win and be great. And, you know, we can continue to see new businesses develop with residential housing above, you know, and those individuals with those ownership opportunities. And then I'm looking at tiered housing programs for individuals that are transitioning from shelter so that they are able to move up through a tier into independent living, because I do understand some of those barriers that exist when we're measuring LTH and long-term homelessness, what that looks like and what that means, and what someone's needs are different in shelter versus what it looks like when they actually are housed. But making sure that we have those healthy, supportive wraparound services to keep people housed and keep them moving forward. That is my goal. And continuing again to work with amazing organizations like yourself, like Housing in Action, like PPL, like Build Wealth, like Habitat, like, you know, all of the great organizations, you know, Northside Achievement Zone, all of these beautiful places, Emerge, Hired, who's been doing the work around here, that I've had the pleasure of building great relationships throughout my tenure in my housing work. So I just want to continue to see our families sustain themselves.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you both so much for that. It's a great note for us to end the discussion on. Thank you, those of you that joined us, and for your patience through our delayed start. We really appreciate you all being a part of this, and hope you'll continue to join us for these kinds of discussions, getting to know a little more insight into our elected officials and understand how they're thinking about things. That really is the goal of this platform, and to give more of our neighbors an opportunity to ask questions and to hold them accountable, because as was pointed out many times today, we elected them, we pay them through our taxes, we get to hold them accountable and have these conversations. And so really appreciate both of you for joining us after, again, such a long and grueling day. I'm going to close just to remind folks that we are a nonprofit organization here at Housing in Action. If you'd like to support more events like these, or our dignified rentals, or our homeownership pathways program, please visit our website to make a gift, or to learn more about our work, connect with us, understand how we work, the way we do the work, and we'll also share some links in the chat after the event. Thank you again for joining us, Councilmember Warren and Councilmember Vetaw. get some rest, eat some good food, get some chocolate, and we'll see you all in the community.
All right. Thank you so much for having us.
Chocolate all day.
Education is
Thank
your
you.
elevation.
Yeah.